Honourable members, let us pray. Lord, the God of righteousness and truth, grant to our King and his government, to members of the Legislative Assembly, and to all in positions of responsibility the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead the province wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideals, but laying aside all private interests and prejudices, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. Amen. Please be seated.
Introduction of visitors.
Honourable members, it is a pleasure to welcome today Honourable Don Scott back to the legislature today. Mr. Scott served Albertans as the member for Fort McMurray Conklin and served as a cabinet minister. Mr. Scott has brought his leadership to various roles, including mayor of Fort McMurray and volunteering with the Royal Canadian Legion. He continues his commitment to public service today as the executive director of the McMurray Métis. He is joined by colleague Jennifer Vardy. I ask that they both please rise to receive the warm welcome.
Introduction of guests.
Let's start with the honourable member for Edmonton Riverview. Looks like you got two in a row. Yes, go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce, we have 26 students from Parkview School in my riding, along with their teacher, Alison Palmer, and parent helpers. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. And we also have students from St. Paul Catholic Elementary School, the grade 6ers again, 35 in total, with their teacher, Kiera Simino, and also any parent helpers, and they're here for the School of the Ledge. So please stand and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Whitemud.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. To you, through you, and to all members of the Assembly, I'm thrilled to introduce my oldest and dearest friend, Alison Palmer. Allie and I have been friends for 42 years. We first met at the age of 6 when we bunked next to each other at Brownies Camp. Allie is here with her grade 6 class from Parkview School, and as a proud public school teacher, she has followed in the footsteps of her incredible mother, Celia Palmer, who was also my grade 1 teacher. Allie, please rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
The Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I rise to introduce to you and through you to all members of the Assembly, Jody and Dan Layden from Sundre, Alberta. Jody is my long-suffering constituency assistant, and Dan is the groundskeeper at Coyote Golf Course in Sundre, which many of you know very well. He knows more about grass, not the kind you smoke, Mr. Speaker, but the grass that makes it smooth to golf on. I'd ask that they rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
Are there more introductions? Seeing none.
Ministerial statements. Members' statements.
The honourable member for Edmonton Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans have noticed something strange about grocery prices. They go up overnight, and they never seem to come back down. Meanwhile, Canada's grocery giants keep reporting record profits, and families are forced to make impossible choices at the checkout. And the explanation we keep hearing from this government is that grocery prices are someone else's problem. Blame Ottawa, blame inflation, blame the immigrants. Blame anyone except those who dominate our food system. Mr. Speaker, this isn't rocket science. When a handful of companies control the grocery supply chain, from production to distribution to shelves on the store, the system stops behaving like a free market. One could say these grocery chains function like a cartel, and Albertans can see it. We saw it when major grocery companies were caught fixing the price of bread for more than a decade. We see it when corporations use restrictive covenants to block competitors from opening grocery stores, even after those corporate stores close their doors. And we see it when these same companies face lawsuits and investigations for allegedly rigging prices and squeezing both consumers and producers. The people have had it with everyday trips to the grocery store that hit their wallet harder every time with unending higher prices. They see these companies report record profits and they know that as customers, they are the ones paying for it. And they've had it with a government that lets these companies get away with it. Instead of stoking division, flirting with separatism, or blaming newcomers for problems that they didn't create, this government could be taking real action to make groceries more affordable. They could ban restrictive covenants that block competition. They could investigate price fixing and collusion in concentrated food industries. They could regulate essential grocery prices where markets are failing, and look at ways to make the sting of these big grocery prices hurt less. Albertans don't need excuses, they need a government.
The honourable member for Calgary Shaw.
11 years in office, 81% tax increases, decaying infrastructure, and zero leadership. Mr. Speaker, that is the record of the former Calgary mayor who now sits in this House as the leader of the NDP. For the second time in 2 years, Calgarians are facing water rationing due to his failure to provide the most basic service, safe, reliable water. Under his watch, he chose to deprioritize water main repairs while lowering safety standards and ignoring experts' calls for inspections. These standards were not reversed for years, meaning the city operated under weakened oversight for almost his entire time as mayor. While Calgary's infrastructure showed signs of collapse, he was busy dreaming up property tax increases, which later doubled, funded expensive blue ring highway art that nobody asked for, completely bungled the Green Line project, campaigned for his federal Liberal friends while their policies cratered the Alberta economy and our major industries, and he handed out thousands of Calgarians' dollars to eco-activist groups like the Pembina Institute for advice. As a Calgarian, here's some free advice. Safe and reliable water should have been the former mayor's top priority, but he failed at the very basics. The accountability report on the Bears Paw South feeder main proves the risk was identified during his tenure. This pipe was labelled high risk longer than the NDP leader's friendship with Justin Trudeau, Mr. Speaker. He claims he didn't know, then pivots in PR stunts saying he should have asked more questions. It's the dog ate my homework excuse, Mr. Speaker, but the report tells a story of systemic failure. This is not leadership. It's the federal Liberal playbook of the last 10 years, focused on elitist and activist policies while ignoring the basic needs of citizens. You can't claim to be ready to lead a province's future when you fail to maintain a city's very foundation, Mr. Speaker. Leadership is not Senate dreams and blue rings. It's about pipes in the ground, water in the taps, and providing the most basic essential services to the citizens you are elected to serve. He may want a promotion, Mr. Speaker, but Calgarians have already delivered his performance review, and it is one of failure.
Order. The Honourable, the member for Edmonton City Centre.
Mr. Speaker, recently I heard from one of my constituents, Ron, senior just over 70 years old. He was raising concerns about how the UCP's new budget attacks seniors like him. He wrote, "As if life in Alberta was not stressful enough, we find out today the UCP government is lowering the eligible annual income for seniors' benefits. This will throw folks off the benefit, may also take away Alberta dental and eye coverage." He noted that thanks to the UCP, he already has to pay out of pocket for eye tests that used to be covered. And his copay on medications has gone up by $10 per prescription, costing him hundreds more per year. And now they're going to make his life harder by cutting him off from seniors' benefits. According to Ron, the resulting loss of dental and eye benefits will cost him an additional $1,000 a year. In his words, with the rising cost of food and accommodations and now an increase in health expenses, this makes living unaffordable for me and many others. He notes a new limit means seniors can't be earning more than minimum wage, and if they do, the UCP will claw it back. Now, the Premier says this is all necessary because the programs that have helped keep Albertans like Ron from falling into poverty are just overly generous. Seriously, the Premier, who earns 5 times the earning limit that she set for seniors' benefits, is telling the people who helped build our province that they've had it too good. A government that's wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on sweetheart contracts for its friends and donors is accusing low-income seniors of expecting too much. A government doubling our debt, despite near-record resource revenues, who wasted a boom during the boom, says seniors should be smarter with their money. Never has a government spent so much to deliver so little and still make Albertans' lives more expensive. Ron and so many others deserve so much better. They deserve a government that cares. The UCP, they refuse to deliver that. but an Alberta NDP government, we will.
Hear, hear.
Honourable member for Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills.
Mr. Speaker, in the coming weeks, farmers in my riding of Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills and across this great province will begin spring seeding. As we all know, farming comes with challenges, many of them beyond a producer's control. High input costs, limited moisture this winter, and increased pest pressures following federal regulatory changes are creating real uncertainties heading into the season. These pressures don't just affect the balance sheet, they lead to difficult conversations around the kitchen table and increased stress for farm families across Alberta. Mr. Speaker, I've received many phone calls and emails from constituents raising these very concerns. One email from Triple H Land and Cattle shared that they have lost nearly $100,000 over the past few years due to the explosion in gopher populations. That is not a small loss, and it is not an isolated case. Spring can take a heavy toll on the mental health of those in rural communities, an issue that still does not receive the attention it deserves. More than 75% of Alberta farmers report experiencing anxiety, and 67% show signs of depression. Both are well above national averages. Even more concerning, roughly 1 in 4 farmers has reported having considered suicide, with true numbers likely higher due to the stigma that still surrounds this topic. Mr. Speaker, rural mental health is a priority for this government, and I want to highlight AgKnow, a digital resource through Counselling Alberta that connects farmers with mental health professionals and support services. I also want to highlight Do More Agriculture Foundation, which is working to break down the stigma and support producers from across Canada. If our animals are sick, we treat them. If our equipment breaks down, we fix it. When the pressures of farming become overwhelming, we must also be willing to seek help. So to Alberta farmers, from one farmer to another, you are not alone. Your community and your government are here when you need us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And editorially, I'll say anybody considering suicide should know they can dial 988 for assistance. The next statement goes to Calgary Mountain View.
The UCP, they like to tell you they're all about democracy, that rights and the rule of law just get in the way of that. But in a free and democratic society, we aren't free or democratic unless everyone, politicians included, must live by the same laws. And if someone can get elected on one set of promises and then turn around and exempt themselves from the rules, pick who enforces the rules, divest anyone of their individual rights, run roughshod over the public's right to information, rewrite the rules so they apply to their enemies and not their friends, that's not democracy anymore. It's anarchy. It's might makes right. Think I'm being dramatic, talking in hyperbolic future hypotheticals? That it's all already happened, Mr. Speaker. 293,976, that's the number of the signatures that the Forever Canadian petition needed. 177,732, that's the number the UCP's separatist supporters needed for their petition. They changed the rules for their friends, twice actually, because they had to get around that pesky Constitution as well. Don't like what teachers have to say? Take their rights. Don't like judges enforcing the laws? Try to control them. Don't want the public to look too closely at the laws they pass? Ram them through the legislature. Don't think your chief lawyer should be bothered with ethics or competence? Exempt him from the rules. Not so into justice, equality, or civil liberties? Appropriate the money that funds those organizations. The UCP have a majority, so they can take any rights they want, make the rules different for their friends. That's just democracy, right? But that argument, Mr. Speaker, that votes are more important than rights, that if you get the votes, you can take the rights, it misses one essential thing. The right to vote is just that. It's a right.
The honourable member for Edmonton Decorah.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta has reached a record high for influenza-related deaths this year. According to the Provincial Respiratory Virus Dashboard, more than 250 Albertans have died with this flu season, making it the deadliest season in nearly 2 decades of available data. This is also the 4th consecutive year in which food-related deaths have gone up in our province. These tragic outcomes reflects broader failure by this government to prioritize public health measures. Vaccination is a proven way to prevent severe illnesses and death from influenza, but Alberta's vaccination rate is just 20%, one of the lowest in the country. Low vaccination coverage means more people become seriously ill, more people require emergency care, and greater pressure is placed on hospitals that are already struggling with capacity issue. A strong public health system emphasizes prevention, clear and timely communication, and accessible barrier-free vaccination programs to keep people healthy and reduce the strain on our healthcare system, Mr. Speaker. Yet, despite what the Minister of Health has described as the worst flu season, this government has chosen to move in an opposite direction. Budget 2026 includes more than $400 million in cuts to public health funding, along with additional $13 million cuts to immunization programs. At a time when influenza deaths have reached record level, reducing investment in vaccination and public health is deeply troubling. Mr. Speaker, Alberta's public health professionals have the knowledge and the dedication to prevent harm. What is missing is a political will, along with resources and leadership that truly values the essential role of public health. Albertans deserve a government that prioritizes prevention, protects public health capacity, and ensures that...
Order. You're out of time, my friend.
Any reports by standing and special committees? Presenting petitions.
The honourable member for Lacombe-Pinoka.
Mr. Speaker, as Chair of the Standing Committee on Private Bills, I request leave to present, in accordance with Standing Order 98-2, two petitions that have been received for private bills. The petition of Honourable Tyler Shandro, KC, member of the Committee of Management and Legal Counsel to the Ranchmen's Club for the Ranchmen's Club Ordinance Amendment Act 2026, and the petition of Mark Maxwell, President of Prairie Bible Institute, for the Prairie Bible Institute Amendment Act 2026. Thank you.
Of motions.
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy, Trade and Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to your oral notice of Bill 18, the Safeguards for Last Resort Termination of Life Act, sponsored by the Minister of Justice. Oral notice. Thank you.
Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Tablings, Edmonton, Highlands, Norwood.
Speaker, I rise to table the requisite number of copies of an email to the MLA for Leduc-Beaumont. This constituent is extremely concerned about the Premier's rhetoric around immigration and public services and urges that MLA to read.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table two reports, one written by Will Knoll, titled Path of Most Resistance, Can Alberta Build a Credible Alternate Plan to Reduce Electricity Emissions? The other written by Lindsay Burchill. MNP Consumer Debt Index shows Albertans are bracing for a challenging 2026.
Calgary, Buffalo.
Three tablings, Your Worship. Sorry. Speaker, 11 letters from Albertans asking government to restore funding to the 3 provincial heritage organizations whose funding was cut. Second is a blog post February 28th from IATSE 212 President Damien Petty titled Alberta's Budget. Has it impacted the future of Alberta's screen industry? And third is a March 3rd Hollywood Reporter article with the title Alberta's Hollywood Film Tax Incentive May Be Trimmed Amid Oil Price Volatility.
Thank you for the promotion. Any other tablings? Seeing none. And that takes us to very close to 1:50. So it is time for oral question period, and the first question belongs to the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. In the words of the Government House Leader, this government's legacy is one of debt, deficit, and dumb decisions. So much money, so little to show for it. $70 million on Turkish Tylenol, $100+ million on the Dynalife debacle, $1 billion or more on bloated surgical contracts, endless deficits, no path to balance. The Finance Minister tells us that new legislation is in the works to roll back the UCP's own fiscal framework, but not until the fall. This is an illegal budget. Why not table that legislation now?
Hear, hear.
Well, a point of order was called at 1:50. Premier.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't call record spending on healthcare a waste of money, or record spending on education a waste of money, or record spending on infrastructure, including supporting water infrastructure, which the member opposite was unlikely to do and unable to do when he was mayor of Calgary. I don't call that a waste of money, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is that we continue to have a reliance on volatile oil and gas revenues. We put forward a budget on the basis of $60, which is what the long-term average is for WTI, and we have a structural deficit, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, actually, Mr. Speaker, oil and gas revenue is booming. It's 7 times what Rachel Notley had, and yet this government cannot balance the budget. In fact, they're planning on doubling Alberta's entire debt in the lifetime of one government. This is astonishing, it is unprecedented, and there is no plan to get out of it, just a prayer for higher oil prices. When will we see from this government a path to a balanced budget and a plan for economic growth to get us there?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What was unprecedented is going from having zero debt to $90 billion worth of debt, which is what happened when the NDP were in power for 4 short years. In fact, this government has had 3 surplus budgets. We put $15 billion down on that NDP-acquired debt. We've also doubled the size of our Heritage Savings Trust Fund, something they didn't do. When we came in, it was $16 billion. In 2021, it's now $34 billion, and it's going to continue to grow, Mr. Speaker. That is investment in the long-term prosperity and the long-term stability of our finances, is growing that fund to $250 billion.
Honourable Member.
We'll certainly get back to the Heritage Fund in a few minutes, Mr. Speaker, but for now, let's talk about what's happening now with the debt. This is the first government since Peter Lougheed that has actually increased our reliance on oil and gas revenues to balance the budget. 7 times the revenues still can't balance the budget, and shockingly, this government has zero economic development strategy. Every town, every city has an economic development strategy. This government does not. Unemployment is the highest in Western Canada. It's up significantly since the Premier took office. What is her jobs plan?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I must tell you that we have more economic development and more diversification of our economy than we ever have before. We are now below the national average in unemployment at 6.3%. We're the only province that is creating new jobs. When you look at year over year from February 2025 until now, 85,000 jobs have been created in Alberta, whereas the rest of the country has lost 33,200 jobs. We remain a powerful economy for job creation and wealth investment, and we're going to continue to, Mr. Speaker.
The second set of questions belongs to the Leader of the Official Opposition.
And yet unemployment has only gone up under this Premier. Youth unemployment is at record highs. We remain the highest in Western Canada. And the Premier just now talked about getting off the resource roller coaster by increasing the Heritage Trust Fund. But under this government's endless deficit plan, there are no new donations to the Heritage Trust Fund for many, many years. So what's the Premier's new plan? When can we expect to see it, given that her plan that she just talked about won't work anymore and isn't worth the paper it's written on?
The Honourable Premier.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope the member opposite will support us in encouraging businesses not to rely so heavily on guest workers and temporary foreign workers so that youth unemployment can go up. Our youth employment can go up. That's why we've also put the youth employment credit in place to encourage employers to hire young people at $10 an hour subsidy. And we're seeing the youth unemployment rate go down as a result, and that's a positive move. Mr. Speaker, when I look at where we have been, the debt we inherited from the members opposite, the fact that we continued for the past 3 years to run surpluses, pay down debt, and invest in the Heritage Savings Trust Fund, that's what we're going to work on.
Member.
Yet again, let's blame the immigrants, Mr. Speaker. This overwhelmed government couldn't deal with 2 years of higher than average immigration growth because the Premier asked for it, and yet they're increasing the debt in this budget by more than the entire assets of the Heritage Trust Fund in only 4 years. And we also know that the Premier wants to use that Heritage Trust Fund as a personal piggy bank to gamble on things that the market won't invest in.
Yeah.
Why is the Premier so comfortable gambling with the savings and the future of Albertans while she's running endless deficits?
Premier.
Well, Mr. Speaker, none of us can see the future, which is part of the reason why we've taken an approach of prudent conservative estimates. When we looked forward, when the budget was released, we were looking at $60 WTI. Within a week, we've now seen that WTI has gone up to anywhere between $90 and $100. We don't know if that's going to end up continuing or whether or not it's going to decline. But that's one of the things we have to deal with as a government. We want to make sure that there's an understanding on the part of the public that when we have $60 WTI, it creates huge pressure on our budget, and we want to make sure that the important things are supported.
Honourable member.
I thank the Premier for admitting that there is no budget here. There's just a prayer for windfalls and for higher oil prices, which is what she just said. This government is bad with money, and their fiscal ineptitude is hurting Albertans. With the same breath, the Premier says, we'll balance the budget on the backs of seniors, poor people, people with disabilities, because we are overly generous to them. A Premier who has 5 times the income of someone on AISH. Will the Premier at least commit today to maintain the political independence of the Heritage Trust Fund?
Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Heritage Savings Trust Fund is independent. Joe Lougheed is at the helm of that, and he has put together an independent board. It gives advice on the investments, the strategy for the fund, and they work in conjunction with AIMCO, which is also another independent entity, in order to make the investment decisions on behalf of public sector workers. So yes, Mr. Speaker, it is an independent entity.
Here you go. The third set of questions belongs to the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Independent entity, AIMCO, that this government fired the entire management and board of and put their own people in, very independent. Listen, I was surprised yesterday to see the Minister of Justice stand up yet again in the never-ending corrupt care scandal to defend his bro, his travel buddy, his best friend, and his relative, Sam Marash. The more we know about the corrupt care scandal, the more Mr. Marash is implicated. Surely the Premier sees this looks bad at the very least. Will she ask her Justice Minister to recuse himself from all corrupt care inquiries?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Judge Wyant took a look at the practices for procurement at AHS and found that they needed to be changed. So there's 18 recommendations that he gave to us, and we're implementing them. We're putting a new procurement secretariat in place to make sure that there is oversight on every contract so that some of the deficiencies in the AHS contracts do not happen again. Also, Mr. Speaker, we look forward to the results of the Auditor General's report. I'm sure that there'll be additional recommendations that they would make, and we will look forward to implementing those as well.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's interesting that the Premier talks about the Wyant report, which I'm not sure she's read, because here is what Justice Wyant did say in his own report. He said he couldn't get to the bottom of the Turkish Tylenol scandal, that he couldn't figure out how much money Mr. Marash was still holding from this government, maybe $50 million, maybe more. And he said that he would write a supplemental report on this specific issue. It's been 6 months. We haven't seen the supplemental report. Has the government seen the supplemental report? What does it say? And when will they table it here?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is a DM that oversees that process, and they have not given us an indication that that report has been received yet, but we look forward to reading it when it is received. The Wyant report also said that there was no politician, no political staff, and no member of government who had made any error in the way that was handled. This was an AHS internal procurement problem, and now we're going to be ensuring that we've changed the processes so nothing like this happens again. We'll see if the Auditor General has anything more to add in improving those processes, and we look forward to that report as well.
Honourable member.
Interesting that on this issue, the Premier relies on a limited report that says there was no political interference, but on other issues, they are perfectly happy to call a public inquiry when it thinks they think it'll benefit them politically. Albertans don't have the answers they need. All we've done is moved procurement further into political interference in the Premier's office, not further away from it, and it will make matters even worse. So, Premier, now that your members are happy with public inquiries when it benefits them, when are you calling a public inquiry on this?
Maybe the member opposite opposite's feeling a little bit worried about what an inquiry might find out about how oversight was mismanaged when it comes to water pipeline infrastructure in Calgary. We're interested in finding a lot more about that, Mr. Speaker. Fact of the matter is, the Auditor General has the ability to ask for people to give him testimony. He can compel testimony. He's had full opportunity in order to be able to do that work. Our understanding was that he is intending to issue his report soon, and we'll look forward to seeing what the results of that are.
The questions belongs to the honourable member for Edmonton-Whiteman.
Almost 500,000 Albertans signed the Forever Canada petition to support Alberta remaining in Canada. That petition was tabled in this Assembly by the Chief Electoral Officer on December 1st of last year. The next step is for the petition to be reviewed by a committee of this legislature to determine what steps the UCP will take to address this powerful expression of patriotism by Albertans. But instead of establishing that committee right away, the UCP delayed it for 3 months and waited until last week to do so. To the member for Leduc Beaumont, the chair of the committee, when will the first meeting of that committee be held?
The Honourable, the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member noted, the Alberta Forever Citizen Initiative policy proposal was received by the Chief Electoral Officer on June 5th of 2025 and tabled to the Assembly on December 2nd, Mr. Speaker. The applicant, Thomas Akazi, proposes a referendum on the following question: do you agree that Alberta should remain part of Canada? Now, the government has 10 sitting days after the proposal is tabled to bring forward a motion to refer the proposal to that committee of the Assembly. And then the committee, Mr. Speaker, has 90 days to either table a report with respect to the policy proposal or to recommend something else that I'll get to the next answer.
The honourable member.
When the UCP changed the law twice and overturned a court decision to make it easier for their separatist friends to put separatism to a referendum, they revealed that once again they were listening to the wrong people, because a huge majority of Albertans are proud Canadians, and the 500,000 people who signed the Forever Canada petition deserve to be listened to by this government. I wrote to the member for Leduc Beaumont last week asking that the first meeting of the committee be held before March 24th. He has not responded. So again, to the chair of the committee, who I'm entitled to ask questions of in question period, will the first meeting of the committee be scheduled before March 24th?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, given that the motion passed without debate, the committee must table a report within 90 days of the Assembly, if it's sitting, which is June 8th of this year, or 15 days after the commencement of the next sitting anticipated for November 9th of this year. Mr. Speaker, the member should know that the committee cannot convene during estimates. It's in the standing orders. It's a bit of a problem for the member opposite to read the standing orders and not understand them, but I'm happy to let them know that the committee will be initiated in due course.
Order. Honourable member.
Mr. Speaker, Committee of the Supply ends tomorrow night, so it's not surprising the UCP wants to ignore the people who signed the Forever Canada petition until after they see how their separatist friends do with theirs. After all, these 500,000 Albertans have proved that the UCP doesn't know Albertans that well. Albertans are proud Canadians. They know we can get more done when Alberta leads Canada, not leave Canada. They know that the Premier's sovereign Alberta and united Canada is just nonsense. They know the UCP will do everything to slow roll things for the majority of Albertans, but fast track them for their friends. They know a separatist government when they see one. So to the member for Leduc Beaumont, the official opposition is ready to get to work. Why isn't the UCP?
Honourable House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it wasn't that long ago the member said that I was selling. Now, Mr. Speaker, I found that was a bit interesting, because if the member knew anything about selling, she wouldn't have dropped the leadership race to back the obvious front runner. Now, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, the NDP has but Mr. Speaker, in the context, selling actually means to fail. But Mr. Speaker, the members opposite have no plan for the economy, no plan to balance a budget, no plan for health care, and certainly no plan for building roads. I ask you, Mr. Speaker.
Go on.
I ask you, Mr. Speaker, with no plan like they have opposite, who's selling now?
The next set of questions belongs to the honourable member for Calgary-Curry.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday my colleague from Edmonton Gold Bar asked the Infrastructure Minister to be transparent with Albertans and release documents about investigations into land deals involving wait for it, Sam Raish. We know there was an internal audit by the department, but Albertans are still in the dark about Sam Raish's role in more than 5 years of bad UCP land deals. So let's try this again. Will the minister release the results of the internal review, table the documents, and come clean to Albertans, or do we have to wait for the Auditor General's report to get to the truth?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As most people are aware, we have very strict processes for all of our property deals. We have looked at this particular deal. We've also asked the Auditor General to look at our property transactions. The Auditor General has asked for a few more transactions so they can do their report or their audit. These are all typical audit processes, and we will fully comply with their audit processes as we move forward.
Honourable Member.
Given that in June 2023, the UCP government officials and ROSC Solutions Group, or RSG, toured a building for detox treatment, and just 4 months later, Sam Raish bought the building, which is now being leased to the Métis Nation of Alberta with services delivered by RSG. Given that RSG has received more than $70 million in UCP government contracts, some of which is now flowing to Mr. Raish, and given that the UCP would like nothing more than to have this issue in the rearview mirror, Sam Raish profited $300,000 in 12 weeks as a result of selling. Will the minister table the documents?
The Honourable Minister of Social Services and Assisted Living.
Mr. Speaker, we've been over this many times inside the legislature. The project the Honourable Member is referring to is with the Métis Nation. We do work closely with the Métis Nation on many projects, Mr. Speaker. They made determinations on which property they want to buy and where they want to run their facility. Is the official opposition saying the Métis Nation should not be able to make that decision, Mr. Speaker? We're happy to continue to fund our First Nation partners, Mr. Speaker, and I think the Honourable Member should answer for the fact that she has received significantly more donations from Sam Raish than this side of the House, something the NDP continue to avoid.
Interesting point.
The Honourable Member, point of order. How good is that? At 2:07. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Curry.
Given that in committee the minister confirmed that there is an active Auditor General investigation into these shady contracts with Sam Raish that may include up to 8 business deals, and given that the minister will not say which transactions are under investigation, and given that taxpayers deserve to know exactly how much they paid for these deals while friends of the UCP lined their pockets, will the minister tell us how much money out of the UCP's $9.4 billion deficit was spent on corrupt land deals with Sam Raish?
The Honourable Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services.
Mr. Speaker, one of the challenges when you can only ask questions by notes is you can't pivot to be able to ask a follow-up question to the answer that you just received, Mr. Speaker. Again, the Métis Nation makes decisions on the property that they want to use. They go and rent a facility from a landlord, Mr. Speaker. No, the government doesn't step in and tell First Nation partners who they can rent from, Mr. Speaker. Bringing forward a conspiracy.
Order. I heard the question just fine. Minister, I'd like to hear your answer.
Bringing forward a conspiracy in this place from people who can't defend themselves or aren't members of it is already appalling enough. But to do that to First Nation partners, Mr. Speaker, I think the Honourable Member should just apologize.
The Honourable Member for Airdrie East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Budget 2026 is focused on what matters. That means making sure we continue investing in our healthcare system so that Albertans have the access to the services that they need. Mental health care is a vital part of our health system. When people can't get timely support, they can end up in a crisis, which can strain families, hospitals, and the entire healthcare system. To the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction, how is Budget 2026 focused on ensuring acute mental health care needs are met for Albertans around the province?
Honourable Member for Mental Health and Addiction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Mental health and addiction care is a priority for this government. This is reflected in our budget this year, Mr. Speaker. This budget, if passed, will be $2 billion, the largest investment in mental health and addiction services to date. Over $206 million is provided through Recovery Alberta to continue operating over 900 psychiatric beds in 5 standalone sites. These beds provide assessment, treatment, stabilization to people who have severe and continuing mental illness or are experiencing an acute mental health crisis.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Minister. Given the importance of the appropriate medical care when it comes to helping people facing acute mental health and addiction challenges, and given that patients need a safe place to continue treatment and recovery when they no longer need acute care but still need structured and ongoing rehabilitation and recovery supports with healthcare professionals, to the same minister, how does Budget 2026 invest into community care beds to help Albertans get the right care at the right time in the right place?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and what a great question. Budget 2026 is going to invest about $11 million to add 60 critically needed community-based mental health and addiction beds, 30 opening this year and 30 for next year. These beds will give people a safe, structured place to continue treatment and recovery once they no longer need hospital levels of care, but still need professional support.
Table, please. Aaron Reist.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that recovery does not end when someone leaves a hospital or a community bed, and given that long-term recovery helps reduce the need for repeated acute care, and given that long-term recovery benefits individuals, families, and communities across the province, to the same minister, what supports are in place to help Albertans maintain long-term recovery and build stable, healthy lives in their communities?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Recovery is a journey, and people need support every step of the way. Through the recovery model, we're investing in a full continuum of mental health and addiction care that includes prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery. For example, people who complete treatment at one of the 60 new beds I just mentioned will be connected to supports and services to build long-term stability and move forward with their lives. Over the long term, a coordinated approach reduces repeat crises, eases pressure on acute care, and supports better outcomes across the healthcare system.
The next set of questions belongs to the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park. Just before that, I'll note that the points of order for 150 and 201 have been withdrawn. Go ahead.
With the UCP, Albertans pay more and get much less, except for debt. With the UCP's bad budget, Albertans get way more debt. When you add it all up, it's quite a lot. $9.4 billion this year, $7.6 next, $7 billion the year after that. That is the UCP's disastrous fiscal plan. Big deficits and no plan to ever balance the provincial budget. When you add it all up, it'll be over $27,000 per Albertan in provincial debt. Why is the Finance Minister's budget saddling every Albertan with over $27,000 each of debt?
The Honourable the Minister of Finance and President of Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, I'm actually glad that the other side has kind of woken up to understand that things cost money in this place. All I hear every day is fund it more, fund it more, fund it more. We don't like the efforts you've taken to decrease expenses. We don't like what you've done to increase revenue. We don't like the deficit. You're talking out of both sides of your mouths. Surpluses, I understand, are theoretical for you folks, but Alberta should pay attention with what we've done with them. Doubled the Heritage Fund, paid down $15 billion in debt no other jurisdiction has.
Comments through the chair, please, Minister. Next question.
Given we're talking for Albertans, given the UCP wants seniors to pay more and get much less, given the UCP is making seniors pay more out of pocket for prescription drugs, more for dental care, more for eye care, more for caregiver support, more for essential vaccines. Why is the minister choosing to make Alberta's senior lives more expensive with more fees to make up for this government's wasteful spending on pet projects leading to never-ending deficits?
The Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta's government's getting ready to invest $6.7 billion this year to be able to stand with our seniors and be able to make sure that life can be affordable for them in the province. I can tell you the biggest thing that we did to make life more affordable for seniors and for all Albertans is get rid of the NDP Liberal carbon tax, Mr. Speaker, which was driving up the cost of everything. We have the most generous thresholds when it comes to senior benefit anywhere in the country. We're proud of it. We encourage other provinces to try to keep up with Alberta, Mr. Speaker. We can do that at the same time as making sure that we can meet our fiscal responsibilities here in the province.
Hear, hear. Honourable Member.
Given the UCP also wants drivers to pay more and get much less, Given the UCP are legislating an increase in auto insurance that will lead to even more costs for drivers, given the UCP are going to be collecting more for speeding fees and even more for registration fees, why is this government saddling Alberta drivers with more fees for vehicle registration, more fees for driving infractions, more fees for insurance, but not investing in safe roads, pothole repair, and the infrastructure that helps Albertans get around this beautiful province?
The Honourable Finance Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you gotta open up the book and go through a few pages. Look at what we're investing in transportation. You're talking about the investment in even capital maintenance and renewal, $4.2 billion. You have to, I think you'd all agree, you have to protect what you already have before you worry about the next thing that you're going to build. And we're doing both, Mr. Speaker. We're going to take care of the infrastructure we have. We have a capital plan that is dominated by healthcare investments and school investments to meet the population charge of today. Albertans should be proud.
The next question belongs to the member for Calgary-Glenmore.
Mr. Speaker, ATCO just wrote off nearly $500 million on its generation portfolio. Investors are warning about serious grid deficiency and transmission problems made worse by the UCP government's chaos and growing market redesign uncertainty. With this separatist government fueling instability in our province, what specific steps is the Premier taking to restore investor confidence in the power sector instead of this self-inflicted damage?
Honourable Minister for Affordability and Utilities.
A government that puts Albertans first. That is exactly why we're fixing the mess that the NDP left behind when they piled on with renewables on top of the $2 billion payout for coal and that whole debacle, on top of the lawsuits that we're still settling. We're protecting Albertans' bills. Power generation prices are the lowest in Alberta history, and we have made significant changes to control the costs on transmission. The highest cost on utility bills, transmission overbuilt, provided to you by the NDP.
Order. The honourable member.
Given that thanks to Cascade and Base Plant and renewables we have enough supply, it has nothing to do with this government, Mr. Speaker. Given that the UCP has hammered renewables with a ridiculous moratorium, costly new requirements, vague pristine viewscapes and 35 kilometers policy, it is death by 1,000 cuts, Mr. Speaker, turning viable, excellent projects into money losers. Given that when we add the UCP separatist chaos, market redesign uncertainty and looming investor lawsuits, how can the Premier claim this market is competitive when new energy supply cannot even enter the market?
Yes. The Honourable Minister for Utilities and...
Mr. Speaker, again, a great example why we're so happy the NDP is not in government, because they don't understand markets. We have a surplus of supply. That is why there's not new generation building, because the price of generation is already nearly at $0. The cost in the system is transmission, caused by overbuild, by renewables, congesting lines that the NDP didn't foresee when they got out of coal. And you know what else? The cost of getting out of coal costs Albertans $100 million every year to 2030.
Order. Honourable member.
Given that ATCO is now threatening legal action against the government, warning the market mess is driving uncertainty and undermining investment made in good faith, given that this is the very sector Alberta's future growth depends on, yet investors are delivering a scathing indictment of the UCP's core electricity policy, given that the UCP is costing taxpayers over $300 million in coal lawsuit settlements from their reckless policy flip-flops, how is the Premier protecting Albertans from more lawsuits?
Minister.
Again, we're doing the work of putting Albertans first every single day. That's why we're fixing the mess that the NDP left behind. They just open the doors. They cost Albertans money through lawsuits, getting off of coal, $2 billion and $100 million a year. We're fixing that. That's why real investment in Alberta has led the country in renewables for the last 3 years in a row. We are showing the example. All the rest of Canada is following us. They didn't follow the NDP. They fled Alberta.
An honourable member just said wise words. Yelling doesn't help. And on that note, we have the next question belongs to Calgary East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government has made significant education investments across Calgary, including 48 new schools since 2023 in high-growth communities, helping address enrollment pressures. However, Calgary's, especially Belvedere, is also growing rapidly, and families are eager to see similar progress. While a 2023 boundary adjustment supported local school designations, residents still look forward for future planning. To the Minister of Education and Child Care, how is the government evaluating future school needs in Calgary East?
Member for Education and Child Care.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to be part of a government that, proud to be part of a government that has a historic number of new approvals. There are currently 161 school projects underway across the province. And we work very closely with our school boards, of course, in the members' riding, that would be Calgary Catholic and Calgary Public, to move forward their highest priority projects. At the moment, I recognize there are no projects underway in the members' riding, but we do have a number of projects that are underway in East Calgary, 11 in Northeast, 5 in Southeast, and others in the neighboring regions as well.
Calgary East, honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Minister for the response. Given that Calgary East has gone over the past 2 decades without a single new school announcement, while other fast-growing Calgary communities continue receiving capital investments, and given that families in Calgary East face long commutes, raising enrollment pressures, to the same minister, what steps will help ensure Calgary East is prioritized in upcoming capital planning?
The Minister of Education and Child Care.
Mr. Speaker, of course, I recognize that constituents in the members' riding are seeing and experiencing firsthand some of the challenges of a significant population increase. We added 80,000 students just in 3 years, but we are working aggressively to build more spaces to contend with that surge in demand. I know that at the moment, Calgary Catholic Schools does have a in their current capital plan. I believe it's number 11 on their priority list. We will continue to work with the school division to achieve their priority projects.
Member.
Speaker, and thank you to the Minister. Given that the long-term planning is essential for fast-growing communities, and further given that the residents in Belvedere and area have expressed strong interest in eventually seeing a school closer to home as the community matures, can the Minister please provide an update on how potential future school sites, including a proposed Belvedere location, are being assessed, and what steps our government is taking to support long-term educational infrastructure in Calgary East constituency?
Well, we use a very clear and evidence-based approach in determining school projects. Of course, we look primarily at safety considerations. Naturally, if there's a school that has a structural deficiency or other kind of problem and needs to be expedited, that is a top priority. We look at enrollment pressure as well as other legal responsibilities, and then subsequently those projects are prioritized. All the projects move forward through this process. In addition, I know that there are currently 45 projects underway in the City of Calgary, and more, of course, will be coming.
The next question belongs to the honourable member for Calgary Edgemont. Is there a change? It's not Calgary Edgemont anymore? I guess since no one's arguing and the honourable member for Castle Downs, Edmonton, is standing up, you go right ahead.
Mr. Speaker, investment in sports infrastructure is integral to the success of Alberta's athletes, from community sports to professional athletes. Without proper investment, we cannot grow or retain athletes in this province. When asked in budget estimates, the minister noted that the sports infrastructure that we have needs updates, but failed to commit to any specific measures. What measures will this government be taking to ensure investment in Alberta's sports infrastructure?
The Honourable Minister for Sports and Tourism.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, member opposite, for a question. We do have aging infrastructure in our province, and just last August I visited provincial, territorial, and federal ministers in
Newfoundland, and we have struck a committee that I'll be chairing to promote both repairing and also attending to all the infrastructures, sport infrastructure in our province.
Honourable member.
Given the tourism industry is the fourth largest revenue source for this province, and given that the tourism levy increase is a new tax that could dampen tourism in the province, or an increased tax, given that the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta said, quote, "I've yet to see a government prove that selective increased taxation efforts afford a path to improved economic output or productivity. Yet, this is exactly what this government has done with its decision to increase the Alberta tourism levy by 150%. Why is our tourism industry not seeing a return in investment despite their high revenue?"
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we still remain the lowest taxed province in the country. Yeah. And when visitors come to Alberta, they benefit from provincial funded infrastructure and services such as highways, heritage sites, public transportation, public safety, provincial parks, and other tourism infrastructure, Mr. Speaker. When visitors come to Alberta, they need to pay a fair share of their fees and taxes in our province, Mr. Speaker. Yeah.
Honourable Edmonton Castle Downs.
Given that the success of our tourism and sports industry is dependent upon this province remaining in Canada, and given that from our national sports leagues, international sporting events, and federal airlines, our tourism and sport landscape would simply not function in an independent Alberta, has the minister considered the broader impact if Alberta were to separate, and will he denounce separatism today?
Minister.
United Conservative Party is committed to stay in strong, sovereign Alberta within United Canada. Okay, Mr. Speaker, our side will also have an ambitious plan of $25 billion of tourism spending by 2035. We have an ambitious plan, Mr. Speaker. We're working on our tourism and our sport, which is the highest return on investment industry in the world. And we are proud of the work we're doing, Mr. Speaker.
The next question belongs to the honourable member for Fort Saskatchewan-Vegreville.
Mr. Speaker, St. Patrick's Day allows us to recognize the long-standing contribution of Irish Canadians to Alberta's cultural landscape, including music, dance, and community heritage organizations that enrich our province. Irish cultural groups, like many ethnocultural organizations, rely on community programming grants and partnerships to celebrate traditions and share them with Albertans. To the Minister of Arts, Culture and the Status of Women, what is our government doing to support Irish cultural heritage and ensure communities have spaces where they can come together and celebrate events like St. Patrick's Day and preserve their traditions?
The honourable member for Arts, Culture and the Status of Women.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ensuring communities have spaces to gather and celebrate their heritage is key to building strong, vibrant communities. Through our government's investments in community grants, we're strengthening cross-cultural connections across Alberta. Since 2019, we've invested over $274,000 through our Community Facility Enhancement Program alone to support Irish organizations, including $125,000 for the Irish Cultural Society of Calgary Community Centre and $65,000 for the Calgary Canadian Irish Athletic Club facility.
Honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Minister. Given that cultural celebrations like St. Patrick's Day strengthen community identity and contribute to Alberta's multicultural landscape, and further given that cultural organizations, including Irish heritage groups, rely on stable funding and accessible grants to host events and educational activities, to the same minister, can you please update this Assembly on how our government is supporting cultural groups, including Irish associations, through programs that promote cultural expression and community celebrations across the province?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is proud to champion Alberta's rich cultural fabric through initiatives like Alberta Culture Days, a province-wide celebration of arts, heritage and community held each September. And through our Culture Days grants, we help Albertans showcase their unique cultural backgrounds and traditions by awarding organizations up to $10,000 to host events. In 2025 alone, our government provided $380,000 in grants to support over 110 free, family-friendly celebrations that brought culture to life across the province. And I'm looking forward to this September for another outstanding Culture Days.
The honourable member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Minister. Given that preserving cultural heritage requires long-term planning, strong community partnerships, and continued investment in arts and cultural programming, and further given that Albertans value opportunities to learn about and celebrate the diverse traditions that enrich our province, to the Minister, can you please update this Assembly on how our government is strengthening long-term cultural heritage initiatives, including supports that help Irish community organizations share traditions with Albertans?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the arts are essential for preserving culture and keeping history alive for generations. Since 2019, the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, the AFA, has awarded nearly $43,000 to support Irish organizations sharing their story with Albertans through the arts, including with $3,900 for the Irish Sports and Social Society and nearly $2,700 for the Grand Prairie Society of Irish Dance. If passed, Budget 2026 delivers a third consecutive year of record-breaking funding to the AFA, investing over $38 million in the creative future of our province. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. The honourable member for Calgary-Edgemont.
A new report from the University of Calgary has published examining an economic cost brought on male perpetration of domestic violence in Calgary. It demonstrates how prevention can reduce repeat domestic violence by 40%. Prevention over reaction should be a priority. Domestic violence is a complex public safety issue. Survivors deserve safety, resources, and justice. To the Minister of Public Safety, investing in prevention would save millions of taxpayer dollars. Why does Budget 2026 fail to address domestic violence prevention? Why is it not a priority?
The Honourable Minister for Arts, Culture and the Status of Women.
Mr. Speaker, our government proudly released Building on Our Strengths, Alberta's 10-year strategy to end gender-based violence last year, the most comprehensive plan of its kind in Canada. In its first year, we invested over $188 million to strengthen prevention, expand services in rural and remote areas, support solutions and improve programs for family, youth and survivors. This is an all-of-government approach with almost every ministry being involved in making sure that we are supporting survivors and creating an Alberta free of violence.
Honourable member.
Given it costs more to do nothing, and domestic violence increased costs to policing, courts and corrections service, costs and time in hospitals, shelters, victim services and supports for transition at home. Given that we could reduce the number of times police go to the domestic violence through prevention actions, it would not only represent extensive cost savings, but it would also have a significant impact on the women and children who are dealing with ongoing violence. Can the Minister of Public Safety commit to exploring promising practices from other jurisdictions to strengthen local response to domestic violence?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Speaker, of course, law enforcement in the province of Alberta take domestic violence extremely seriously, which is why most police services within the province have their own domestic conflict units, Mr. Speaker. And we are even taking it even more seriously because we're making sure that we have ankle monitoring for domestic violence cases. And that's something that we're working on in this upcoming budget and look forward to more on reporting on that. Thank you.
Honourable member.
Given that red flags emerge before criminal acts of domestic violence happen, given data suggests that earlier targeted intervention will likely, with offenders, could significantly disrupt predictable and escalating patterns of violent and coercive behaviour, and given that investing in targeted prevention strategies focused on men prior to criminal charges can reduce long-term taxpayer and system costs, including pressures on healthcare and law enforcement and social services. Can the Minister for Public Safety commit today to investing in behaviour-changing programs like those that would allow Calgary Police Services to connect with men in the community that is evidence-based intervention?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, we fund many groups to support victims of domestic violence, but I can tell you what has done the most damage to victims of domestic violence, Mr. Speaker, is a bill called C-75, supported by the NDP. That allowed violent repeat criminal offenders, including those who committed serious domestic violence offences, to be released into the community and re-victimize those victims. Mr. Speaker, we're on the side of the people that are going to stop that from happening.
The point of order from 207 has been withdrawn today. Takes us to the next question for the member for Calgary-Falcon.
Healthcare after 7 years of the UCP government is worse than ever.
A father of 3, Prashant Sirikumar, went to an Edmonton ER with chest pain and waited nearly 8 hours before he suffered a fatal cardiac arrest. Acute Care Alberta has now issued 16 recommendations, including 24/7 cardiac technicians and increased permanent staffing. This government has known about these failures since the day he died. The answers are obvious. So why are these life-saving recommendations still under review instead of fully funded and implemented?
The Honourable Minister for Hospitals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and again, we extend our deepest condolences to the friends and family of Mr. Srikumar. It's important to note that the Quality Assurance Review is only one of many reviews that is ongoing, and I'm pleased to share that the fatality inquiry has now been booked for later this year, and that is what will investigate the events surrounding the tragic death of Mr. Srikumar. We're not waiting to address the situations in our emergency departments, including the Grey Nuns. There's already work on ALCs, which is a recommendation under the QAR. We're expanding nursing, and we're looking at more ECG tech time.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Falcon-Ridge.
Given Prasant's family now describes their home as feeling like a cemetery, waiting for accountability. And given one key recommendation is the creation of a triage licensed physician to catch critical cases before they worsen in waiting rooms. And given reports show this role is stalled due to this government's inability to negotiate with physicians and put in place the triage physicians that would help save lives. Why is this government failing to implement a triage system that could literally mean the difference between life and death for Albertans?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the other recommendations was to increase general internal medicine and medicine capacity at the Grey Nuns, and I'm pleased to share that Acute Care Alberta is working with site administrators to expand both capacities. They already had a design kickoff meeting and project managers are on site. The member opposite referenced the physician triage liaison role, which of course was implemented, budgeted for $20 million over 2 years at 9 sites. We're working with the AMA, who had some compensation-related requests when we implemented the position, and I hope that we have a solution soon.
Honourable Member.
Given this was not an isolated tragedy, with 2 other Albertans dying in that same ER on the same day, and given doctors have identified multiple preventable deaths linked to ER overcrowding, and given the Acute Care Alberta report calls for hospital occupancy to be lowered to 85% to ensure safety for patients and staff, does the Minister accept his government's failure to manage capacities, creating a dangerous situation in our ERs, and will he commit to meet that 85% occupancy target to fix the mess in public health care?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I acknowledge we can always do better, and in fact we must. We are dealing with people's lives, and in this case, a husband and father. One of the other recommendations was to review and propose revisions to the updated chest pain nurse-initiated protocols to ensure that clinical decision support reflects that the protocol is a tool to risk stratify patients who have chest pain. It doesn't rule out that they might have serious issues that need to be addressed by a physician. And I'm pleased to report that the revisions have been underway. Clinician review is happening right now. We expect it implemented in 2 months.
The next question belongs to the Honourable Member for Livingston-McLeod.
Mr. Speaker, Albertans rely on effective policing to keep communities safe and recognize that such protection carries necessary costs. As rural municipalities are now expected to assume a larger share of these expenses over the coming years, they are facing increased pressures in planning and budgeting. Can the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services explain what mechanisms the government will implement to ensure these communities have meaningful influence on policing priorities and service levels?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety and Emergency Services.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank the member for the question, and thank you for the proper oversight that we will be doing, of course, for our municipalities. For example, we're empowering municipalities to form local policing committees within those communities in rural Alberta. We've established regional boards to ensure that smaller municipalities can pool their voices, which I think is extremely important, Mr. Speaker. And we're also mandating more frequent and transparent reporting from police providers to the municipal councils to ensure more effective and responsible policing in rural Alberta. Thank you.
The Honourable Member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that rural municipalities often face bigger challenges with costs because they have a lower population, resulting in a smaller tax base to help cover the increasing cost of policing. Further, given that this makes it much harder for municipalities to plan ahead and keep their budgets balanced each year. Can the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Service tell us this Assembly how the government will support rural municipalities as they manage these added costs?
Minister.
Much, Mr. Speaker, and again, thank the member. And of course, the cost of policing have increased substantially, specifically with the RCMP, Mr. Speaker. That's precisely why we froze and provided $27 million worth of support while we allowed municipalities to reflect on what is going to be the best service for their communities, Mr. Speaker. And I can tell you that this government is still continuing to support folks within rural Alberta as we are subsidizing the municipalities in the RCMP to the tune of $85 million over the next 5 years.
Mr. Speaker, given that rural municipalities are raising concerns that higher policing costs may force them to increase property taxes on residents to balance their budgets, and further given that with these added costs, it's important to understand how this will affect rural taxpayers. Can the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services explain to this Assembly what steps the government is taking to make sure rural taxpayers are not left paying the full cost of these services?
Minister.
Thank you. That's part of the subsidy, Mr. Speaker. Of course, we're phasing this in over, again, a period of 5 years, starting in 26-27, starting at a 22% phase-in, and then increasing by 2% all the way up until 2031, Mr. Speaker. That the cost increase by the RCMP alone have been 57% increase. Obviously, that is something that is unsustainable. So I'd like to give credit to my rural colleagues in this cabinet for making sure that they're supporting rural policing and specifically the RCMP and municipalities in this province, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
In 30 seconds, we'll continue with the daily routine. I hesitate, but it's been mentioned to me I should give you a second shot at tablings if anybody has any more. Seeing none.
Tablings to the clerk. On behalf of Honourable Mr. McDougall, Minister of Advanced Education, pursuant to the Regulated Forest Management Profession Act, Association of Alberta Forest Management Professionals, 2024 Annual Report.
Honourable members, my sincere gratitude. One accident-free day. Thank you for all the withdrawn potential points of order on both sides of the House. Teamwork makes the dream work. That takes us to the daily routine is concluded. The Legislative Policy Committee will convene this afternoon and tomorrow morning for consideration of the main estimates. This afternoon, the Standing Committee on Resource Stewardship will continue consideration of the estimates for Treasury Board and Finance in the Grassland Room, and the Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future will consider estimates for Executive Council in the Rocky Mountain Room. This evening, Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Technology and Innovation in the Grassland Room, and the Standing Committee on Families and Communities will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Public Safety and Emergency Services in the Rocky Mountain Room. Tomorrow morning, the Standing Committee on Families and Communities will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Hospital and Surgical Health Services in the Rocky Mountain Room. And the Standing Committee on Resource Stewardship will consider the estimates for the Ministry of Affordabilities and Utilities in the Grassland Room. Honourable members, pursuant to Standing Order 59.1 sub 5 sub B, the Assembly stands adjourned until tomorrow afternoon at 1:30 p.m.